Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. Today, in the Router Workshop, a project as unique as it is beautiful. These are step drawers. Router experts Bob and Rick Rosendahl show you a quick and easy way to use half-lap joinery in the casework. You'll also discover a unique method of box joining the modules and the drawers. Step drawers, coming up next in the Router Workshop.
Welcome to the Работа Workshop. And what are we going to be building today, Dad?
Well, we got a set of step drawers here, and they're meant to hang on the wall. But what's so nice about them is that one piece kind of cross-laps into the other at these 2 points. And there's some little steps in here that make sure we get all the box joints to match after when we do that.
This looks a little tricky.
And then I guess you're going to make some drawers up.
Yes, I got my material already set up on my table, and I'll be right over
Start
there.
away.
All right.
What I've chucked up here, and I'll show you what I've got here, I've got a half-inch bit. And it's a half-inch spiral bit. And also I've got a 1-inch guide. So we're going to use a miter gauge here to cut this with, because I've got to cut that cross-lap. Now, one thing about the cross-lap is, and I'll show you the pieces in here, it's the depth on them, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't show in this case. So we got the bit inside of here. It centers on the guide. We'll bring the fixture up itself, and we don't have a slot in our router table, as a lot of people like to use their miter gauge from their table saw, but we find when you're working around the guide, it's lots easier because you're up here where the action is. So this is how it works inside of it. So we got the bit set up. Now we need the pieces. And what we're going to do here is we're going to cross-lap one piece into the other. And you see how I've got them marked. We have to mark things or else you won't know which ones to do and you'll have them opposite to them. Now these have got to be blocked inside of it here. And when we put them in, I've gone down about halfway in it. What you want to be sure, if you want to be real careful, you could square this round action up here from the bit after. But if you don't want to, it doesn't matter because one piece covers the other anyway. So we'll take and start with the long pieces. And I've got one set up. And I put some sandpaper on here. And the reason I put the sandpaper on, you have to appreciate that that router bit's turning in that direction. And when it does, it has a tendency to want to pull that over. And I know a lot of times you might set this in here and say, well, I got it, tight enough. But it takes a little pressure on that bit thing. Has so much push on it that we need a little tension on this too, and it locks it down. You might see the front end pop up a little bit. I'm going to hold that down when I pass it through. What I'm doing is just sighting this in here along the line. If you want to get real careful inside of it, we could put a stop block on there so that you can mark each one, but that's not that important anyway. Now, height of the bit, well, we want to cut right through, so we'll raise the bit up here. And I'm going to run in here, probably stop it and come back out with it. Now we get some power. You got power in here. Well, we don't get to do this very often, and that is use some wood from local here. This is a local elm, and it's pretty nice. It's got a nice grain to it, and you can sure tell the difference in the smell. Now, this is how it goes together. Isn't that neat when it fits inside of here? Now, the other thing we've got to do is cut the box joints in it. So we're going to have to tear down here and change, and this time I'm going to cut 3/8. So I'm going to change the cutter. And the cutter that I'll use is a 3/8 bit. We'll unplug the router. Make sure you do that every time you change a cutter. And this time we'll put that inside. Squeeze those out of here. And, of course, we've got to get rid of that guide. We won't need it in. And we're going to use a spacer fence. There's the 3/8 bit. And I'll get my little brass bushing in here. Change that away. Pop it in. Put the ring nut on the back side. Now with these box joints, location is really important. And the location that we got in here, we've got some that starts from the edge and some that don't. So I've got them marked here, and that's what you should do before you start, is mark it. But let me look at the bit here first. There's the cutter that we've got. We've just got a bushing to reduce the size of the hole, and we'll drop that in. Now, system that we've got in here, set this up, and there's our fence. Now we're going to need a couple of bolts. We'll pick up a couple of bolts here, and we've got another one in here, I guess. There we go. Now this is all locationed right on here on the table, so you're not worried about it, but I'll explain what I'm doing here. We got a little fence, and we've got bit coming up in the center here of that hole. The wing nut on the back side, and I'm going to need a screwdriver to tighten them with. Always make sure they're tight, because if they're not tight, the pressure of the bit might move that over. So we'll pop that up in like that. Now, let me explain what we got in here. We have a bit that's 3/8 of an inch wide. We have a fence that's 3/8 of an inch this way. And the space between this has to also be the 3/8. Well, sometimes you get a little give in this thing around the bolt holes, so you have to use your fine adjusting tool. Tap that in, make that space less, and it'll be a loose joint. If you tap it out, it'll get tight. And that's pretty simple to figure out because the spacing there is greater to fit inside of the hole. So now, we'll take that down, and the height of the bit. The height of the bit, people, is always whatever the thickness of material that you're running. So just take another piece and put over the top and raise that cutter up. And it's usually a good idea to go right through, plus maybe a little, because it's easier to sand them little tabs off than it is the whole flat surface. So make sure we get it deep enough to start with. Now you'll notice on this block in here that to make these box joints work, we have to have an offset. And the offset is exactly the width of the bit. So some of them have the offset in and I marked them. And I think what we'll do is cut those first. And in order to do that, we have to put another block on. And how I've got this block was I just ran it through here, cut it in, and then we can turn it over, and that makes that space inside of it. So we'll run that in here. Don't leave the block sit like that, even if it fits snug. That bit's rotating, and it'll take it away and shoot it down in your workshop someplace. So make sure we put a clamp on it. Now, that'll rub just a little bit as it comes around in here, and you'll probably hear it when I start up. But this block, I've got corner ones need to be done, so I'm just kind of sorting these out in here. This is another one I have to set off. And this is another one. So I got these offsets. Now all we're going to do is stand this up here, make one cut, turn it over, and do the other. And you notice the lines that I have. That tells me that that line should always go to the fence, so when we assemble, we got them all in the right place. Well, we could use a push block behind it here, so we'll use a little stick. The reason for the block is this. When you stand it up here, you're kind of guessing whether you're square or not. With the block, it gives you support. But also when the cutter comes through, you'll get a clean cut in here because you've got backing for it. And let that block just run into it. Don't take this back with you. Let it go ahead. Just pull your stick back with you. There. Now we get some power in here and see what we got. And let's run. Now we're going to stop because I want to take this block off, and it's always a good idea to let that router bit run down before you do that. So we'll take the clamp off, and then we'll pull this block back out of the way. Now we can go back and we can do all of them. What this does is make that offset in here so that they come flush on the edge. So we'll just lay these up here and get my little push stick, and we'll cut them off. Nice box joints, easy joint to make. Now, did you figure out what else I could have done? What I could have done there was that I could have taken these two pieces that were the same size, we could have clamped them together and ran them together. And you can do that. But if you've never done this before, I suggest that you do what I just did here, do them individually. And the reason being is that you get the practice to do it. That's what makes it easy. Now, we'll see how Rick's coming along with his drawers.
After cutting the rabbets in the backs of the drawers, I then set up and began to cut the 1/4-inch notches for box joints in the sides of the drawers. Now this is the reference cut that we've made here now, and what that's going to do is allow us so that when that front comes in place, it's going to have a pin on the end that fits here because we've already cut the plug to these pieces. Now let's finish these pieces first. So we're going to set this again back into the order that we had before, and we're going to take off this first piece here, which gives us our reference, and all we're going to do now is finish the cuts on the box joints. Now we have all these pieces exactly the same on the sides. We have the front for the box joints ready to go. The last operation we need to cut is now for the fronts to have the same kind of box joint. Now remember, the thickness of that material has to match the sides. So what we're going to do is set one of the sides in place, drop the cutter down so it matches that thickness, and it has to be at least that. If you're a little lower than that, then you got to sand the whole box. If you're a little longer, you just have to touch up the fingers. So we're going to set these aside here now. and bring it over our 3 fronts. And what we need to do now is we're going to pick a bottom here, which is going to be the fence side, and we'll mark those, and we'll cut them all to match that. So let's mark the front side here. Basically, this way here we can keep them always the same, because if you start cutting, you want to make one like this, and then you do this old twist deal, you're going to have them on opposite sides. So you want to make sure that when you have the mark, you keep it to the fence all the time. All right, let's cut these now. We'll move this material out of the way so you can see it, and let's cut them. Yeah, notice when I cut them, I cut this one and the other pin first. That made it so that I couldn't forget the next time and get them flipped around wrong. Because if you get them wrong, they're not going to fit together very well. All right, we're going to put a 1/8 inch groove through the inside of the fronts, which I'm going to do right now. So we'll move our pieces off, make sure we have them in order to where we're going to need them, and set them aside for now. And let's unassemble the box joint. So we'll unplug the router and get our screwdriver out here and unassemble this part of it. And let's undo the other part on the other side. And let's move this thing off to the side here. We don't need that anymore. Let's change our bit. It's unplugged. And let's look for our 1/8 inches our next, because that's the size of the bottom of the material that I'm putting in is 1/8 inch. So we'll move this out of the way and put it in place. I'll give you a quick look at this one here. 1/8 inch bit's very small and very fine spiral. I've got it inside. There's 2 collets on this one because of the size of the thickness of the material. So we've got to make sure we line this one up perfectly. Tighten it up. And you'll notice that the 1/8 inch one, you want to make sure that it's in there very good. We're going to set the depth of that just a little bit on the front. So we've got the depth set. So it puts the groove in place. Let's get ourselves a fence here. That's going to allow us to cut those pieces. And I need a couple of clamps here. Tighten down that side. So we'll clamp down the one side. And now the distance away from the fence is going to be dependent upon the groove that you've got here, and you want to find your line of your stick. And let's just get these all over here so we can make sure that we've got the right line. You remember that line that I put on the 3 sticks? That's going to be up against the fence. Now, where we position this is going to be very important on the front. We want to put it inside the pin. Why do we want to put it in the center of the pin? Well, we don't want the end grain to show on it. And on the side pieces, we're going to have to do stop and start. So we'll get them right in the same position, tighten them down. And this is going to give us all 3 sides. Now remember, this bit is very fine, so you've got to give it a nice even feed speed and very slowly, or it's going to break. The other thing you want to make sure you do is stay outside of the cutting tool, because if it's going to come loose, it's going to come up. And we don't want that to happen. All right. All right, got the 1/8 groove in the fronts. The next operation is put the 1/8 groove into the bottoms. And to do that, we're going to have to check to make sure that we line up, which we do. And we just have to start on the pin. So this is a little tricky. What you want to do is you want to set it solid on the back side and then set it onto the bit and run it. Because we don't want to blow it through here, otherwise we're going to have to patch that up. And I don't think plastic wood would look so good on the project. All right, so let's start it up and just tip it into the place and make the cuts. All right. Got the one piece here. There's the stop and start cut. Now we'll Bring this piece over here. Let's see if we can slide this together so you can see it. And there the two pieces cut and match. I'm going to finish the sides now, and we'll go see what Dad's doing after we're done. All right.
Now it's time for tips from the workshop, viewer mail, and tricks of the trade on router bits, tips, and wood chips.
Using small bits in your router. If you look at this one here, it's a 1/8 with a 1/8 inch shank diameter. Well, to sleeve that in position, you have to put the 1/4 inch sleeve into the 1/2 inch cullet. Then you have an 1/8 inch sleeve that fits into the 1/4 inch cullet, and then you have the router bit in place. You want to make sure when you're tying this up is that you line up all of the slots so that they match, and you want to make sure that you have enough of this router bit in position. When you tighten it in place, not necessarily is it going to stay in there. This particular one here is an upcut 1/8 inch bit. What it might do is come up. What it does is it wants to pull the material out. If it's not locked in position tightly, is it'll slide up and come through your material. Now I have a piece of material here that's showing us that. We've got the 1/8 inch groove in the back to put the bottom of your drawer in it. But if you notice it, I've got the piece here. We've routed one, and what has the bit done? Is it's come right out through the top. So make sure when you're routing this that number one, you have it locked in tight, and number two, that when you're feeding by that bit, that you keep your fingers outside the cutter area. All right, I got the drawers here.
Well, we're going to see if we got some fits here, Rick.
I'll just put these over in the corner because I've already got those pre-assembled.
Hold that.
I'll hold that.
I got to see if I can get these pieces or not. Now, these are the notches we put in to make the cross lap.
This is the confusing part, right?
Yeah, we got to keep these lines all up here.
Okay.
See, I made that deeper in it, but it's okay.
Well, that's okay because they're hidden, aren't they? That's
you
right.
hold that one.
Okay.
I'm going to give you lots of things to hold here. This one goes down inside of there.
Right.
If you have a look inside here, how it just slides by. One of the things you might be disappointed in is if you don't sand these before you mold them, they might make them a little thinner, and then your cross lap won't fit as good. Well, this is the hard part to put together in here because one's got to fit inside of the other here. So we'll just
looks like we're getting a real assembly procedure here.
Yeah, just tap that just a little. We got it pretty tight. That should be good. And we'll turn around and we'll start this one down.
Okay. Oh, that
one fits
good.
just a little bit. Yeah, we'll tap that one again.
All right.
Now, take these two end ones out. And where's my line on this one? And the lines are in towards, so this one goes like that.
All right.
And, well, the line's in the front again. Yeah, I guess they are.
All right.
And
the lines you're referring to, folks, is these ones here, and that keeps you close to the fence so that every one of the joints are coming from the same reference point. And that's important.
now, got some more pieces. Looks like a small little item, but there's a lot of pieces involved in here.
This is a project that you could spend a lot of time at it. Now, you got the lines in the right place?
I think we got the lines at the front there.
All right, looking good.
Yeah,
now the tricky part. I went over here and built the drawers. Are they going to fit?
Who knows? We're going to get a chance here. Maybe I'll just turn this around. Use the rubber end of that. I guess that's why they put rubber ends on them hammers, is it?
Yeah, well,
there's the things here. We got all the lines are all showing outside of here.
And there's one of my drawers fitting in. I lost one of my backs. That's all right.
Back fell out because it's all just in there.
And there's
the second
drawer number 2. And let's keep this one together here. And we have drawer number 3. A little bit of sanding and some glue, and we've got her done, right?
Yeah.
I hope we've inspired you to get your router out of the box, and join us next time right here in the Router Workshop.
We'd like to hear from you. You can email us at the address on your screen. Send your comments, questions, or project ideas to the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 608, Chamberlain, South Dakota 57325. Or in Canada, the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 280, Ely, Manitoba, ROH-OHO. To learn more about the Router Workshop, visit us at the internet address on your screen. In the next episode of the Router Workshop, the first of our two-part series, The Corner Cabinet. Bob and Rick start with the lower cabinet portion of the project. Bob will show you how to prepare the top, subtop, and bottom. Then, using a beating bit, he dresses up the columns, while Rick creates beautiful raised panel doors with a difference. That's part one of The Corner Cabinet, next time in the Router Workshop. Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. You can now order router bits, tips, and wood chips, a 45-minute video featuring Bob and Rick Rosenthal's personally selected shop tips and router techniques. To order your copy of this home video for $19.95 plus $4.95 shipping and handling, have your credit card ready and call 1-800-803-1449.